Oh, good morning. Long time no talk. Um, haven't posted as much as I would have liked, but here we are anyhow. This is going to be, I guess, smoke and sip number two, and I think my working title was Love and Loss, and yes, that's literally it. Um, the TLDR, I don't know, I'm going to do a lot of pondering again. TLDR is we got pregnant and then we had a miscarriage. This is our second miscarriage. We had our daughter in between, but this one in some ways was easier, in some ways was harder. So anyhow, let's get into it. Or read light. Got my Zippo, represent my hometown. But yeah, so this one hit different. I mean, loss is loss. Literally is. This is loss. Um, our first miscarriage was whenever we were trying to sell our house in Lower Pennsylvania, and we were living in my parents. We were living in my parents' garage, essentially. More specifically, it was my father's taxidermy shop. He had just gotten everything in there, getting ready to start into this season of taxidermy, and then we showed up. So they very graciously gave us our own space, even though it was very, very small. Um, we were there for far longer than we wanted to be. We expected our house to sell quickly because of the market. We actually got under contract very quickly, uh, but then they failed to get the funding that they needed. Then by the time that we got another seller that actually stuck around, it was over a year, I think. Um, but we had one car that was legal. I think at the time, yeah. So I went to work and my wife stayed there. There was nobody home most of the time, and she got to stare out of a single window. That was pretty much it, and it was the winter. So the winters in the Allegheny National Forest are cold, especially in whenever we're getting blasted with snow. Last year, not so much. But that first year was pretty brutal. We had always talked about having children. We both knew that we wanted to have them. We just weren't sure on how many. My wife originally floated the number of up to four. I'm like, okay, whatever, as long as we can financially make it work. Like, I don't want to put us in essentially drop the quality of living for four children down to where they're like, oh well, we had sticks and dirt and we hated every minute of it. I know that in general kids don't think like that, but still, I wanted to be able to give them a good life. Um, so at one point we were like, okay, well, what's the worst thing that happens? We weren't sure. Like, can we have a baby right now? Maybe. Well, let's find out. And she got pregnant, and we were incredibly excited. And then she miscarried, and that was pretty devastating. Um, why is miscarrying devastating to us over anyone else, right? Like, it's like one in four people deal with this. So it's not like it's this crazy factor that only ever happened to us. Um, well, windproof, there you go. Well, it's because my wife has put so much of her personality, stock, value, time, and energy into her fertility. Um, I feel like a lot of Erin's identity is whether or not she can have children, and has literally based a lot of our life and like living holistically, more kind of like chemical free. If there was a chemical that could impact her ability to get pregnant, gone. If there was a medication that had an ability to impact pregnancy, gone. Find something else. Figure out how to deal with it. Unless it was literally like life saving medication. Um, um, so whenever she's been putting time and effort into this for like, I think at that point, like 4 or 5 years, and then it fails, it's like, well, what was the point? What was the point of any of this? Why were we trying so hard? Meanwhile, there's people right in town here that are third generation welfare with more kids than they know what to do with, and they're getting them taken away by the state because they're terrible people. Um, but here we are, and we're struggling. Quickly, I think pretty quickly thereafter, Erin got pregnant again. We were again excited, but tempering our feelings because we weren't sure what to expect and how long things would stick around. Did now Aurora's gonna be like, I mean, she's walking, talking, and an absolute terror, and I love her to death. So we're like, hey, came up with a plan in which we were like, well, unless God says otherwise, this is when we're gonna try to get pregnant, and that'll put us about like having another kid around this time, and kind of plotted things out. Pretty much got pregnant in the window we expected. I think it's like essentially two months later than what we originally planned. Erin thought she was past whenever she would be like it would have shown that she was pregnant. She's like, oh, I guess I'm not pregnant again. Weird. Okay, well we'll keep working on things. Pregnant. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. This is awesome. Boom. Another one of our friends pregnant. Awesome. Boom. Another person who's been struggling for a long time to have kids pregnant. Like, this is awesome. We get to do this with all of our friends, all pregnant around the same time. And then no. I feel like it was I think 5 weeks that we had to be excited. I'm trying to be emotional. Sorry. Um, the loss is obviously about a kid. Um, the love is also child and wife. Um, being called into the bathroom by your wife because she started to bleed sucks. Doing Google searches of is it normal to bleed this much? Because there was a little bit of like they call implantation spotting when the egg implants um, with my daughter, but not like this. And then the hope and the wonder of trying to Google things, reaching out to the midwife, asking things, and it pretty much there were some edge cases of, hey, this could be twins, perhaps. It could be maybe you're just bleeding more. Um, But the most likely answer, I mean, it's like the Occam's razor, was the like was probably a miscarriage. Um, sure enough, miscarried. Um, that sucked. And now it's been during those 5 weeks, like we were happy, excited, but my wife's anxiety went through the roof. Um, Probably some of the worst that I've seen in a long, long time. So even those 5 weeks sucked. Not as bad, but like it's not like they were overly joyous. It's not like we were feeling great and having a good time. So we had all this struggle and fighting to try to make this the best pregnancy possible, to have it end. Um, so then we had to go through, and we specifically didn't tell a ton of people, like purely for that reason that we just weren't sure. Um, so yeah, now dealing with the fact that, well, hey, not only was it a ton of like nutrients, my wife lost weight and she wasn't eating, um, exhaustion, just essentially putting her through the ringer. Um, we also had nothing to show for it. A new hole dug in the ground underneath our giant oak tree to bury what there was, and that was it. Um, and now we're dealing with, like, obviously that bothered me, but what do you do? Single income, and I know my brain. And my family, my own propensity towards depression. So it was kind of a, well, try not to think about it too much and pick up the pieces and move on. Um, go to work, do your job, come home, support your wife, repeat. Um, like that's kind of always been the goal. Uh, Even whenever we weren't pregnant or dealing with anything heavy. Was just that repeat. Work, home, spend time with family, support family, repeat. Um, but it was just a lot more intense recently. So had like a flow of how our days were going. We had a flow of me working on stuff, and obviously over the last month or so, that hasn't been able to happen because I've been all hands on deck helping my wife, trying to either get her to eat or helping her through this grief. And each day is different with how things are going. And then I should have started this out at the beginning, that I'm not looking for sympathies. I'm not looking for I'm sorry. I'm not looking for, I don't want to say platitudes, that makes it sound negative, but I'm not looking for platitudes of, well, you know, that baby's in heaven now and you'll see them again one day. I'm aware. Doesn't help right now. Like, my now I'm also dealing with my trying to support my wife to the best of our ability in all of her cycles of grief and emotion, of what has even been the point of uh, working on getting like our living as clean as possible. What has been the point of working on like spending money on all this stuff? And like, I don't fault her for any of this stuff. How could I? She puts up with so much crap and is just trying to do her best. I'm just trying to have the money and support to give her and the child and our child. So supporting Aaron through all this has been really tough too. It's just a constant. It's a full time job without a full time job. Trying to make myself available and be there to help out. Um, I hope none of this comes off as too much like complaining. It's really not. It's just me giving myself the time to finally sit and unpack some of it. I think this sucker's about out. So yeah, just kind of give myself some time to think about it and maybe explain a little bit to people why I've been MIA. And also just kind of putting it out there because I know that other people deal with this stuff and it's not easy to talk about. And I know the last little smoke and sip that I did, actually, I got messages from people being like, hey, I've gone through the same things, or it's just really real to just see a guy sit down and talk about it. I don't think I'm anyone special. I'm just me, just Ben. I specifically, whenever I was just kind of like poking around with content creation stuff beforehand and Facebook stuff, just had named all my stuff no untalented because I'm like, I'm not a talented person, I don't think. It's just a lot of effort and just kind of grit to try to push through things and not necessarily force things to work, but then I feel like you're working against God, and that can only end poorly. Um, and that's how I also feel with this pregnancy stuff. Is we had a plan, we were trying to go with it, and obviously it didn't jive with what God wanted. I would have preferred that we just not get pregnant at all. I would have preferred that if God would have been like, not yet, and just not allowed anything to take root instead of this. But what do? It's his plan, not mine. We seem to be on the upswing. Things are getting better daily. We're kind of coping, working through things. I'm trying to help Aaron any way that I can. Hopefully, we can get back into some more normalcy in the near future. And hopefully, whenever the next video that I post is happier. A lot of these smoke and sips aren't going to be heavily edited. It's just long form. It's minimum effort. It's a low speed, high drag. But yeah, I hope everyone else is doing well. Since I posted my other video, which got way more views than I expected, a lot more watch time, people actually watching the whole way through it. So I guess people either struck a little bit of a chord or people actually cared. I am seeing that a lot of people, at least in the Facebook page circle, everybody seems to be doing a lot better. I see a lot less doomer and sad boy posting. So hopefully everyone's continuing to do so. I've made some more connections, meeting a lot of really cool people. So yes, come check it out or don't, whatever. This isn't made to be a plug. Just kind of let my brain ramble. Reach out to people you care about. Try to support people if you know they're going through a hard time. A lot of my wife's friends kind of came out and were checking in on her, which has been very, very helpful. If you've got kids, give them an extra squeeze. If you've got a wife or a girlfriend, give them an extra squeeze. Because you never know. It's all hills and valleys. And we were on a little bit of a hill there for a while, like doing pretty well. But it's been a little bit more of a valley lately. And at least with my wife's mental and physical health, just been kind of a steady slide downhill. So trying to work out the best way to approach things and get her back on an upturn. But yeah, I think that's probably about it. Probably gonna get headed back home now. I came out to a local cemetery, boop, 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 because they have a gazebo and a pond. Also known as it's more quiet. It was either that or a gazebo behind the local college, and college is back in. So, yeah. All right, folks. Hope you have a good day. Hopefully, I can get this up pretty quickly. I don't think that I have too much editing I have to do. You folks have a good day.